Om Namo Bhagavate
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapraishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhagavati Naishtiki Hare Krishna. We have been reading yesterday. Prabhu had taken a class on this wonderful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, that introduces and sets expectations about the process of Krishna consciousness. Prahlad Maharaj is the unquestioned hero of Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we want to understand what is Krishna consciousness, who is Krishna, what should be our approach to understanding Krishna, then there is no better way than to follow the footsteps of great personalities, great pure devotees such as Balarama Maharaj. So we continue with that verse today and go a little deeper. Please repeat after me. Shri Prahlad Vacha Matirna Krishne Paratasvato Va Mito Bhipadhyeta Grihavritana Adanta Gobhir Vishatanta Mishram Purah Punascharvitas Charvanana. Synonyms. Shri Prahlad Vacha. Prahlad Maharaj said. Matihi, inclination. Na, never. Krishne, unto Lord Krishna. Parataha, from the instructions of others. Swataha, from their own understanding. Va, either. Mithaha, from combined effort. Abhipadhyeta is developed. Grihavritanam, of persons too attached to materialistic bodily conception of life. Adanta, uncontrolled. Gobhi, by the senses. Vishatam, entering. Tamishram, hellish life. Punaha, again. Punaha, again. Charvita, things already chewed. Sharvananam, worth chewing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to the materialistic life may progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others or by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Please repeat the translation. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of the others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Purport. In this verse, the words Matirna Krishna refer to devotional service rendered to Krishna. So-called politicians, erudite scholars, and philosophers who read Bhagavad Gita to twist some meaning from it, to suit their material purposes, but their misunderstandings of Krishna will not yield them any profit. Because such politicians, philosophers, and scholars are interested in using Bhagavad Gita as a vehicle for adjusting things materially, For them, constant thought of Krishna or Krishna consciousness is impossible. Nothing than Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Only through devotional service can one understand Krishna as he is. The so-called politicians and scholars think of Krishna as fictitious. The politician says that his Krishna is different from the Krishna depicted in Bhagavad Gita. Even though he accepts Krishna and Rama as a supreme, he thinks Rama and Krishna as impersonal because he has no idea of service to Krishna. Thus, his only business is Puram Purascharvitas Charvananam, chewing the chewed again and again. The aim of such politicians and academic scholars is to enjoy this material world with their bodily senses. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that those who are Grahakrita, whose only aim is to live comfortably with the body in the material world, cannot understand Krishna. The two expressions, Grahakrita and Charvita Charvanama, indicate that a materialistic person tries to enjoy the sense gratification in different bodily forms, life after life, but is still unsatisfied. In the name of personalism, thisism or thatism, such persons always remain attached to the materialistic way of life. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.44, Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam Taya Bhatta Chetasa Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadhavna Viriyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and those who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Those who are attached to material enjoyment cannot be fixed in devotional service to the Lord. They cannot understand Bhagavan, Krishna, or his instruction, Bhagavad Gita, Adam, Tagore, Vishatam, Tamistram. Their path actually leads towards hellish life. As confirmed by Rishabdeva, Mahatsevam Dwaram Ahur Vimukte, one must try to understand Krishna by serving a devotee. The word Mahat refers to a devotee. Mahatmanam Stumam Partha Dev Daivi Prakritim Ashrita Bhajanti Ananya Manaso Yatva Bhutavim Avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as a supreme personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. 9.13 Bhagavad Gita. A Mahatma is one who is constantly engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. As explained in the following verses, unless one adheres to such great personality, one cannot understand Krishna. Hiranyakashipu wanted to know where Prahlada had gotten this Krishna consciousness. Who had taught him? Prahlada sarcastically replied, my dear father, persons like you never understand Krishna. One can understand Krishna only by serving a Mahat, a great soul. Those who try to adjust material conditions are said to be chewing the chew. No one has been able to adjust material conditions, but life after life, generation after generation. People try to repeatedly fail unless one is properly trained by a Mahat or a Mahatma or unalloyed devotee of the Lord. There is no possibility of one's understanding Krishna in his devotional service. That's a wonderful translation. Bhakti Vedanta Bhakti. Om Agyat Viradhasya Vyarajana Shalave Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namo Shri Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Vinam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachati Nirvishesh Shunyavat Paschati Krishnaya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasat Gaurvani Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna. So here Prahlad Maharaj is describing about why certain persons cannot approach Krishna consciousness. And yesterday we saw what is Krishna consciousness, and we are continuing from that in that same line of exploration of what Krishna consciousness is. I would like to read one more exalted Vaishnava's perspective on what is Krishna consciousness. All of us have heard of this exalted Vaishnava, but perhaps we don't think about him as exalted Vaishnava. And this person is none other than Lord Shiva. Vaishnavanam yatha sambho. And in a conversation with his wife Sati, Lord Shiva is imploring her not to go uninvited to the sacrificial ceremony performed by her father Daksha. Prajapati Daksha, great personality, had developed envy towards Lord Shiva and could not understand his transcendental position. And he considered Lord Shiva to be an inferior person socially because Lord Shiva had accepted Prajapati Daksha as his father-in-law by marrying the daughter of Daksha, Sati. And due to this envy, once when Lord Shiva had not recognized the entry of Daksha in a prior sacrificial ceremony and did not stand up immediately as everybody else in the assembly had done so, Prajapati Daksha, even though there were great persons in that assembly who stood up and offered all sorts of respects to Prajapati Daksha, but simply because one person in that assembly, two persons in that assembly, did not stand up. The one person that I am aware of is Lord Shiva, Brahma. Brahma, of course, did not stand up. Right? Yes. Brahma, being the father of Prajapati Daksha, did not stand up, and it is stated later on that even that he was not very happy about. But definitely Lord Shiva, he carried a lot of envy. And therefore, he was deeply offended. And he spoke several ill words. And at that time, Lord Shiva had been completely unaffected by any of the words spoken by Daksha. However, to avoid further unpleasant situations as they were developing, he had left the assembly. And sometime later, when Prajapati Daksha arranged for a second sacrificial ceremony, this time he did not send out invitation to Lord Shiva or to Sati, to his own daughter, who was the most affectionate daughter. But because she was married to Lord Shiva, he had also started disregarding or ignoring Sati. But Sati, when she came to know that the sacrificial ceremony was being performed, she became very eager to visit that ceremony, meet her mother, sister, and as well as meet her father and participate along with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva did not feel it was the right thing to do, to go uninvited like that. And he also advised Sati to not go. And in that conversation, he speaks this verse. And let us see what this verse is. It's a very, very wonderful verse and an eye-opening verse. Lord Shiva is now describing about his own transcendental position. He says, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabdhitam Yat Iyate Tatra Pumana Bhavitah Sattve Chatasmin Bhagavan Vasudevo Hiyadhokshajo Mena Namasa Vidhiyate. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabdhitam. These words are often quoted by Srila Prabhupada in subsequent verses also. Sometimes we can understand how important a verse is by how often Prabhupada quotes that in other verses. And this particular verse has been quoted very often. Sattvam Vishuddham is, Sattvam, the word Sattvam has been translated by Prabhupada as consciousness. Sattvam is translated as consciousness. And Vishuddham is translated as pure. So Sattvam Vishuddham is pure consciousness. And this pure consciousness has a name. What is the name? Vasudeva. Vasudeva Shabdhitam. Shabdhitam is known as Vasudeva. So pure consciousness is also known as Vasudeva. Yad iyate tatra iyate is revealed. Yat iyate, because in this consciousness, iyate, something wonderful is revealed. What is that something wonderful? Tatra Puman Apavritaha. Puman is Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Person. He is revealed without any covering. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabdidam. That is, in this pure consciousness, Puman Apavritaha iyate is revealed. And Sattvecha Tasmit Bhagavan Vasudevo hi Adhoksha Jeve Namasa Vidya. And that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Vasudeva, Tasmit Bhagavan Vasudeva. And that Supreme Personality of Vasudeva is the person that I am always engaged in offering obeisances to. So Lord Shiva is saying that pure consciousness in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed, in that pure consciousness, I am always meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. In Vasudeva consciousness, Vasudeva is revealed, and therefore I am always meditating and worshipping that Vasudeva. So Lord Shiva is always meditating on Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada says in translation, I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure consciousness. And then he says, Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness. It's a wonderful statement, very, very powerful, and in many ways unexpected statement. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any cover. When we think about Krishna consciousness, sometimes we ask each other, how long, when did you come to Krishna consciousness, Prabhu? Maybe 7 or 8 years back, 7 years back, when we first met the devotees of this temple. They had come to my house, they had distributed Bhagavad Gita, they had invited me, I received a WhatsApp invitation, I came to this temple. I came to Krishna consciousness 7 years ago. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness. Now we have to ask ourselves, have we remained in Krishna consciousness for 7 years? And that is a question that we have to try to answer in these deliberations that we are trying to have as we build up our mood in receiving the Lord on the day of Janmashtami. What is Krishna consciousness? Am I in Krishna consciousness? What is the standard of Krishna consciousness that is described in our scriptures? Which is the process and the platform from which the Supreme Lord Himself is revealed without any covering. Let me read a few sections of this purport. Of course, the purport starts by saying the living entity is constitutionally pure. So the first thing that we have to take out from our minds is that, oh, this purity is something that I have no hope of achieving. After all, I am a conditioned soul. But you are a soul, and the soul is constitutionally pure. That is the wonderful part. We don't have to go very far, because the soul is constitutionally pure. And somehow impurity is getting added. So it is not that pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness is impossible standard for us to achieve. It is possible standard because that is our constitutional position. Asango hi ayam purushaha. In Vedic literature it is said that the soul is always pure and uncontaminated by material attachment. The identification of the body with the soul is due to misunderstanding. That's all. Sometimes we have misunderstandings with our friends or family members, colleagues. We say something, they understand something else. And how do we sort it out? As soon as we come to know that there is a mistake, first of all, sometimes we don't know. The person is offended and remains offended. And next time we meet them, they don't talk to us properly. Or maybe some other signal is given that I'm unhappy with you. And then we figure out, okay, something is wrong. Then we go and approach and clarify what happened. Did I offend you in some way? Oh, I'm so sorry. Let us clarify this misunderstanding. Here is what I meant. Finished. Over. Misunderstanding is over. You have come back to your original understanding. Misunderstanding is gone. The process of Krishna consciousness is something very, very similar. Misunderstanding is in our control to remove. It is not out of our control. As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure, original, constitutional position. This state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to material qualities. And then, further down the purport, Prabhupada is saying, to execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service. But how? Without desire to gain material profit by fruitive activities or mental speculation. That's all Prabhupada said. To execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service. How? Without desire to gain material profit by fruitive activities or mental speculation. This seems a very straightforward thing, and those who have been coming to the temple and hearing classes, this is stated very, very often. And yet it is very much worth repeating, because the moment we come outside this class or we start engaging with our normal household duties, accumulating wealth, taking care of our possessions, taking care of our near and dear ones, trying to chase happiness, trying to go after pleasure, all those activities are on the platform of desiring to gain material profit. It is on a material platform. And even though intellectually we hear this, that devotional service must be devoid of gain for material profit, you say, of course, why else would we? I have no other material, I have no desire. I am simply coming here to serve the Lord. I have no desire at all. We say that to ourselves, more than to others. We say that to ourselves. We truly believe this. Many of us, we truly believe that I have no material desire. I am coming to serve the Lord without any desire, because I don't ask the Lord anything. But what we forget is, we don't have to ask the Lord anything. Simply having desires and executing devotional service alongside itself means doing devotional service with fruitive intent. Because as Bhavagrahi Janardana, the Lord seated in our heart, is grasping, he is understanding, he understands all our desires. And with those millions of desires in our heart for power, prestige, social status, wealth, relationship pleasure, family pleasures, and all other kinds of sense pleasures, all those pleasures which we are cultivating in our heart and fanning them in our heart, and then for momentary, certain moments in a day, we attempt to render devotional service, but those desires have not gone away, and therefore such a devotional service is considered impure devotional service, and we have to recognize that to ourselves first of all, because if we don't accept and recognize that within ourselves, we can never come out of that. The misunderstanding can never be removed. In pure devotional service, one simply serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a matter of duty, without reason and without being impeded by material conditions. That is called Shuddha Sattva or Vasudeva. Because in that stage, the Supreme Person Krishna is revealed in the heart of the devotee. So this revelation or realization, there is something that is further said about that. Factual realization is to understand Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and surrender unto Him. Vasudeva is the ground wherein Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. So we are here to welcome the Lord in our heart, and that welcome that we want to do, and we want the Lord to manifest in our hearts, then our heart first of all has to be in Vasudeva state. Without the heart being in Vasudeva state, the Lord does not manifest. The Lord remains covered. But if we want the Lord to be uncovered, apavritaha, what is the exact word? Apavritaha. Not apavritaha. If you want the Lord to be uncovered, apavritaha, then our heart should also be in state of pure consciousness, or Vasudeva consciousness. And this is not some pie in the sky or some celestial palace that you cannot build ever. It's not like that. Normally, the Lord is in a disguised state. The Lord is all around us. But we cannot see the Lord. We cannot perceive the Lord. Maya javanika channam agyadhokshacha avyayam na lakshase mudadhrita drisha nato natya dharo yatha. In Maharani's prayers, she is saying that the Supreme Lord, Maya javanika achannam, he is covered. Na lakshase mudadrisha. He is not visible to the foolish persons, just as an actor who is disguised in a play is not visible to the audience as who the actor is. Sometimes when the actor is very good, you can't make out. The same actor may be playing 7 roles, 9 roles. Kamal Haasan, Rajnikant, all these people have done movies. Of course, they want their face to be seen, so they don't deliberately do not cover themselves very well, because people come to see the actor. So who will pay ticket money? They don't know if it's Rajnikant or Kamal Haasan. But Krishna is not like that. When he wants to be hidden, we cannot even detect where Krishna is. He is in our presence. He is there in every atom. He is present. Even the devotional service that we offer is happening because of his internal energy. To whatever extent devotional service happens, and we are not able to perceive the Lord because of our contaminated consciousness, and because of that he remains hidden. But when we start using our senses in serving the Lord, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. When we start using our senses in rendering loving devotional service to the Lord, the senses become purified, and gradually the mind, which is one of the senses, also becomes purified, and it is possible for us to reach the state of Vasudeva, or pure consciousness. By executing one's prescribed duties in devotional service, Chetasa Nanya Gamina, or simply hearing about God and chanting about Him, if one's mind is always engaged in chanting and hearing, and is not allowed to go elsewhere, one can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed by Lord Chaitanya, by the Bhakti Yoga process, beginning from hearing and chanting. One can cleanse the heart and the mind, and thus one can clearly see the face of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this verse, Lord Shiva is saying that since his heart was always filled with the conception of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because of the Lord's presence in his mind and heart, he was always offering obeisances to the Supreme Lord. So this is a standard of Krishna consciousness that is defined by the person who is foremost amongst Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva, in his conversation with his wife Sati. Interestingly, this verse is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Adi Leela, in 4th chapter, this verse is quoted. And I would like to go a little bit before the quotation of that verse, because those few verses leading up to this verse is 65th verse, I think, 66th verse, and a few verses prior to that, 61st verse onwards, or 59th verse onwards, there are descriptions of the different classifications, different categories of, the different features of the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. This Sattvam Vishuddham, or Vishuddha Sattvam. Vishuddha Sattvam is exhibited in 3 potencies. And when these 3 potencies come together, it is called Vishuddha Sattvam. And as we are trying to execute our devotional service, it also helps to know a little bit about Krishna, because then we can perceive how these different energies are manifest, and we can also experience in a very, very fleeting way, just as we have Krishna standing here with Radharani. So we like to understand who is Radha, who is Krishna, like that. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is description of who Krishna is, who Radharani is, who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. And Krishna is described as having absolute truth, is consisting of Krishna, his own feature. There is the internal energy, there is a marginal energy, and there is an external energy. These are 4 features of Krishna. His internal energy has got 3 features. One is called Ahladini Shakti, and here in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. She is his internal energy called Ahladini. That Ahladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. So we are all hankering after pleasure. All our actions are designed for pleasure, but actually what we do is simply mitigate miseries. Because there is no real pleasure in the material world. There is no way to obtain real pleasure. All we can do is mitigate miseries. We are seeking pleasure, but what are we doing? We are actually only mitigating miseries. That's all we are doing. If we don't eat food for some time, we develop hunger. So we are eating food to mitigate the misery of hunger. If we are having food for 10 days continuously, and on the 11th day there is not enough food, it may possibly give rise to hunger, which may possibly give rise to misery, and so today let me work harder. So on the 11th day I am having food. So we work extra hard to ensure that food is always available, shelter is always available. There is always money for school fees for children. There is always money for enjoyment on vacations. So all of these future miseries that we are trying to avert, we are thinking that we are actually creating happiness for ourselves. Although we are going after happiness, but actually what we are doing is we are not actually getting happiness. We are simply averting misery. However, Krishna's internal energy, Ahladini Shakti, actually gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees, which means it also gives pleasure to the devotees. The pleasure that we are able to experience in Krishna consciousness, even in our mixed state, impure consciousness, even in this impure consciousness, the pleasure that we are able to derive in chanting, hearing, kirtan, association of devotees, hearing class, entering devotional service, attending arati, and all the varieties of services that are available in the temple. The transcendental pleasure that we are able to derive is actually because of the Lord's mercy in releasing that Ahladini Shakti, so that we may be able to feel that Ahladini Shakti. If we had not done that, we would not be able to experience it. And that is why love of Krishna, or even the ability to render devotional service, is only possible by the mercy of Lord or his pure devotee. Because had it not been for that mercy of the Lord and his pure devotee, we would not be able to feel the teeny fraction of Ahladini Shakti of Krishna, without which we will not be able to come even the next day for devotional service, let alone remain for several years in devotional service. Just as if you are given food, suddenly doctor says, no more salt for you. I hope none of you have had to experience that. But if somebody says like that, my father once, when he was not well, he was told, no more salt. Immediately after some bypass surgery, those days it was like that. Now it doesn't happen. You come out of bypass surgery, next day you can have everything you want. But in those days, after bypass surgery, for several months, no salt diet was required. I said, okay, let me try this no salt diet my father is having, let me also have taste a little bit. See, it was so bland, like completely tasteless. There is no way a person can actually have the second day also that food. Of course, that food people get conditioned to it like that. But actually, in absence of that pleasure, that transcendental pleasure, fleeting moment that we feel, without that pleasure that is obtained to us as a mercy, prasadam of the Lord, it is not possible for us to continue devotional service. So, as we are preparing ourselves to receive the Lord, and now we have learned that Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness. It has to be executed without material motivations. That means if we have to remain in Krishna consciousness and advance and execute devotional service, we require the mercy of the Lord, because we are in such contaminated state that if we don't receive that Ahladini Shakti, a little bit of the pleasure potency, there is no way we can continue and advance. So similarly, just as we talked about Ahladini Shakti, The next Shakti out of the three, second one, it is called Sandhini Shakti. Lord Krishna's body is eternal, Sat, full of knowledge and bliss, Ananda. His spiritual energy manifests in three forms. Ahladini is his aspect of bliss, Sandhini of eternal existence, and Samvit of cognizance, which is also accepted as knowledge. So let me summarize these few verses because there is not enough time to go a little deeper into this. But in short, if we were to say this for us to understand this in easy terms, the knowledge by which we become aware of what I just described, the fact that Ahladini Shakti is the pleasure potency of the Lord, and if we don't get the mercy particle of that pleasure potency, it's not possible for us to continue in devotional service. The little pleasure that we receive is because of the Ahladini Shakti. This knowledge is coming from the Samvit Shakti of the Lord. If Lord had not released His Samvit Shakti to us, it is not possible for us to grasp what is being spoken in Bhagavatam class and try to understand it, reflect upon it, and assimilate it and internalize it. This process of internalization and becoming aware of the multifarious energies and potencies of the Lord and how the Lord acts, and this verse that the Lord says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tatpata, simply by hearing about His transcendental appearance in past times, one will not come back again upon His leaving His body. So becoming aware of His transcendental pastimes, the fact that it is transcendental. This knowledge is possible when the Lord releases a little bit of His Samvit Shakti. And the Lord Himself, His existence is based on Sandhini or Sat. And not only the Lord, but His Father, in Krishna's pastimes, Vasudeva, Devaki, the bed in which he was residing, his clothes, his flute, and his stick that he would carry, all of this is present in the Sandhini. And his devotees, pure devotees, they're all existing on this Sandhini or eternity. So these are the three energies of the Lord. And Prabhupada says in the purport of these verses leading up to the description of Krishna consciousness verse which I had just quoted from Lord Shiva, Prabhupada says that he gives further tips on how does one advance in Krishna consciousness. So one is to know about Krishna and his energies and his potencies. But he makes one very powerful statement. Prabhupada says, a living entity is situated in the status, a living entity who is situated in the status of pure goodness can understand the form, qualities and other features of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Naturally, because in our contaminated state we cannot understand Krishna. We cannot understand his form, qualities. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhaved Grahyam Indriyahi Sevon Mukhe Jivvadu. We have heard that verse. Then Prabhupada goes on to say, Krishna consciousness begins on the platform of pure goodness. Krishna consciousness begins on the platform of pure goodness. Gaya. Sab kuch gaya. Here we are thinking we are in Krishna consciousness for many, many years. And Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness, you have not even started. Please start. Krishna consciousness begins on the platform of pure goodness. Although there is faint realization of Krishna at first, Krishna is actually realized as Vasudeva, the absolute proprietor of omnipotence or prime predominating deity of all potencies. When the living entity is situated on Vishuddha Sattva, transcendental to the three modes of material nature, then you can perceive the form, quality and other features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his service attitude. Even for such a person, just look at this, even for a person who is situated in Vishuddha Sattva, how does he realize Krishna? You cannot say, oh, no, I'm Vishuddha Sattva, pure goodness. Krishna, come on. No. He is realized through his service attitude. That is what brings him to the Vishuddha Sattva. And that is the process and the destination and the means, even the state of pure goodness is the only way by which we can realize Krishna. How do we get to this? How do we get? Is it beyond our pure goodness? Even goodness itself we are struggling. We are deep in Tamoguna. And how do we get to that? To hear that, we have to come tomorrow, and Prabhu will give further tips on how do we go from ignorance to passion to goodness and actually rise to pure goodness. Is it even possible for us? We'll stop here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.